So originally, this video was supposed to come out in February. I had an entire little monologue written up about how February is here and love is in the air, and it was supposed to come out for Valentine's Day, right? But then my fucking computer died. So instead, we're just gonna kind of freeball, spritball, whatever the fuck. We're just gonna kind of lead into this a little bit differently. Today, I want to talk about the Wii U. However, I have a little bit of an issue with that. A lot of the videos on this platform, with all due respect to everybody who makes videos, they are all the same when it comes to the Wii U. It's always like, oh, the Wii U was a failure, this is how, and blah blah blah, but you know, it's great to mod and so on and so forth. I don't really want to do that. My challenge is that I wanted to make a unique Wii U retrospective, because in truth, I do love this console. I think it might be my favorite console of all time, as odd as that sounds. So my challenge is that I want to give the Wii U its well-deserved flowers without really any of the negatives attached to it. This is just a pure love letter to the Wii U. That's the intro of the fucking video. But anyways, the only way to begin this video truly is about discussing the very day that I got the Wii U, and as well as how I found out about the Wii U. Growing up, I had always had video games surrounding my life. I had a Wii, DS, PS3, all my dad's retro consoles, etc. But the first console that gravitated towards me was the N64 of all things. At the ripe age of around 4, my dad for some reason entrusted me with his N64, and in all fairness, he went with his gut and would wind up having it be paid off. Would I personally trust a 4-year-old with a childhood console? No, not really. But luckily, I was well behaved and didn't break anything. Instead, the trade-off was I got some classic memories. Super Smash Bros., WWF Warzone, and WrestleMania 2000, Star Fox 64 were just some of the titles that really hit home with me, which would then tie into the modern games I was playing as well. Owning a Wii, I'd be immersed in the worlds of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the 5 times we had to rebuy it, Super Mario Sluggers, the also 5 times we had to buy it, what else? The Mario and Sonic franchise, fucking Boom Blocks, and Chuck E. Cheese Party Mix. So while I maybe missed out on some hitters that we always had like Mario Galaxy, Skyward Sword, etc., I still played a pretty decent amount of the lineup. This was stretched into the DS as well. Despite maybe not having that many games, I have fond memories of Mario Kart and Mario Party DS, as well as all the mini games in both Mario 64 DS and New Super Mario Bros. Getting to the PS3, I'd have titles like Black Ops 2, Mod Nation Racing, Little Big Planet, as well as every single WWE game that would come out. Anyways, I say all this to note that I was playing games a pretty good amount, but I hadn't become fully integrated into the world of gaming, at least not until the Wii U. When the Wii U finally released in 2012, I was 6, so almost 7 years old, you know what I'm saying, 6, 7. But I was honestly at the ripe age of not only playing games, but discovering them as well. I would stumble upon various videos online of the Wii U and became hooked. There was something so neat about the console to me, and I knew I wanted it bad. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be another 2 years until 2014 rolled around, where I'd finally be able to get the console. It was my last day of school before Thanksgiving break began, a good old Tuesday. Me and my sister had come home from school when my parents told us they had a surprise for us. The surprise was originally meant to be our big present for Christmas, but our parents had wanted to play it, and it was none other than a new Super Mario Bros. U Wii U Deluxe set, alongside Mario 3D World and Mario Kart 8. Legendary shit. So yeah, that was my pre-story to obtaining a Wii U, and I look back at this day very fondly. When I was at the storage unit a few weeks ago, I actually found the box for the console, which was such a neat find all these years later. But now that the backstory is out of the way to how I got my Wii U, what did I think of the console, and what were some of the memories I had with it? Well, I think the first thing to discuss is what you see when you first launch the console, the home menu. Launching into the Wii U takes you to the Wara Wara Plaza, otherwise known as the home menu. This was unlike anything I had ever seen from a home menu, and still hasn't been topped to this day in my personal opinion. When you launch the console, you're greeted to your Miis being dropped into the plaza, with all kinds of other Miis surrounding the plaza. You can interact with them, seeing the names, which were actual users of the Wii U back when the console was connected to Nintendo Network. Even cooler was that you could see surrounding titles, both games that you've played as well as others having played, surrounding the plaza. Interacting with these could show you Miiverse posts from the users within that bubble, and it was such a cool ass feature. You can view who on your friends list plays a certain game, but on the Wii U, this plaza made it feel like a real community, of course backed by Miiverse. I still yearn for another Nintendo social media platform, though it is highly unlikely. Also, dark confession, I never fucking used Miiverse, unfortunately. I really don't know why, honestly. I of course can't speak about the menu without discussing the beautiful music to go alongside it. The menu had such a calming vibe to it, with the occasional Mii voice chirping in to add to a lived-in effect. Sometimes there would be times as a kid where I'd boot up the console just to sit in the menu, soaking in the vibe of the Wara Wara Plaza, as it was always a treat to hear. Moving into something that ties sorta into the home menu, let's talk about the controllers, the consoles, and the discs. In my personal opinion, which I guess all this video is an opinion, so what am I really saying this for? But in my opinion, I adore the Wii U gamepad. From the lens of child me, a controller housing this giant screen was so incredibly cool. I wasn't aware of any of the specs or any of that nonsense, so just the novelty of having a big controller was cool for me, and man, was it comfy. One of my favorite things to do was soak my hands into the controller and just lean back into the couch looking at the TV. But the gamepad doubled as a convenient TV in its own right. Unfortunately, I didn't use the TV mode on the gamepad, though that in itself was a cool idea. I just honestly had 1,000 remotes for the TV, I didn't really need another. But for when the TV was being used, usually by my mom, the Wii U gamepad screen became a godsend for when I wanted to play games. Using it for games like Smash Bros, propping it up on the gamepad stand, or even just holding it in my hands while my mom would watch her shows, it was peak gaming. Other controllers included the Wiimote, which was pretty much identical to its Wii counterpart, so not much there. But I do gotta pay my respects to the Wii U Pro controller. This controller was pretty neat for what it was back in the day. It had a fucking, like, godly battery for some reason. Lastly, I gotta talk about the disc and the console. So let me tell you this, I genuinely have never felt such a premium product like the Wii U disc before. I'm not sure what exactly they did to make them feel the way they do, other than Google saying that it featured soft round edges, but they're really satisfying to rub your hands on. Just don't get any fingerprints on them. I also enjoyed the cases that the games came in. They too had their own smoothness to them, alongside the Wii U console itself. While I do personally prefer a matte finish over a gloss on consoles to protect it from fingerprints, I can't lie, those smooth edges on the console made it really satisfying to touch. Between the home menu and the feel of the console, it's gotta be up there for the most satisfying product Nintendo has ever made. But of course, what's a console without its games? I'm gonna do my best to go in order of what I played from what I remember, but as well as touch on games I'd wind up playing on Switch that originated on the Wii U, like, say, Tropical Freeze or Pikmin 3. Additionally, I'll mention games I owned but hadn't played, though I don't think I'll get to touch on all the titles I'd like to. For example, I never owned it, but I always wanted Game & Wario and Wii Party U, but hopefully someday I will. The list of games aren't gonna be in super great order chronologically to the pay lore or their releases, but again, I'll do my best. The Wii U has one of my favorite libraries in Nintendo's history. It's not a large lineup of titles, but the ones that we got here are very high quality, and I'd like to begin with the game I played when I first got it, Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 felt revolutionary for a young me, and for a good reason. Coming off of 7, which to be honest I didn't play much, I had the benefit of going into 8 treating those mechanics as essentially brand new, and what a treat it was experiencing things like anti-gravity for the first time on Mario Kart Stadium. Backed with some genuinely breathtaking visuals and a killer soundtrack, this was plenty to keep me busy. If there's one memory I have that ties directly to the Wii U in this game, it would be using the horn on the Wii U gamepad screen every single race. I really liked how Pink Gold Peaches sounded, just take a listen. Though I've covered Mario Kart 8 in full before, so I'll move on to a really underrated game in my eyes, Nintendo Land. Actually, no, pump fake, New Super Mario Bros. U. So I was one of the probably few Wii U owners to have not had Nintendo Land, as my console came bundled with the New Super Mario Bros. U and the New Super Luigi U game. But honestly, I think that's what made me appreciate the game more. It is classic 2D New Super Mario gameplay, but man is it so good here. Again with really great visuals, though not different from the previous entries, allowed for an easy transition into HD. The game's biggest compliment I can give it is it's a smooth ride all throughout. Whether it is those visuals I mentioned earlier, or the tight control of each character, it is personally my favorite New Super Mario Bros. Game out of them all. I do believe the series suffered from fatigue, but don't let that underlook what a well-crafted experience this game is. However, that was not the last game I got with my Wii U, as I also got Super Mario 3D World and this game right here. Oh man. If you've seen any of my other videos on the channel, perhaps this was already common knowledge, but this is my favorite Mario game, and personally one of my all-time favorite games. I cannot tell you how many times I've played this game, and I've somehow managed to love it just as much as I did the first time around as a kid. Without taking away the opportunity for a future video, in short, I think this is, much like the New Super from earlier, such a well-crafted game. The levels are each crafted so carefully and allow for the maximum potential with Mario and his friends' moveset. I always rocked Blue Toad both here and in the New Super U game. I never switched up on my twin. But I can't lie, it was a really neat feeling getting to unlock Rosalina after you beat the main game and into the special world. That arrival of going into World Bowser for the first time, seeing the beautiful bright lights of the amusement park themed world is still a core memory of mine I have to this day. Thankfully, retrospect has allowed more and more people to look back fondly on this game thanks to that bundle of Bowser's Fury and the various quality of life improvements on the Switch port. People can now look at this game up there with the likes of Odyssey and Galaxy as some of Mario's best, but always remember, we were there since day one. One really neat detail that is unfortunately lost to time now is the usage of the stamps in the game. If you've played exclusively the Switch version, you might not know that the stamps could actually be used in Miiverse, which was a really awesome inclusion. But those were my launch day, well, I guess not launch day, but the first games I got with my Wii U. But those wouldn't be my last games from 2014, as on Christmas Day, I got 2 more games. Me and my sister each got a game, but sharing is caring, so we'll combine both. For me, my parents got me the very obvious Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, and my sister, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. I'll start with Sonic Boom, as believe it or not, I actually do have something positive to say. I remember the Christmas we got these games, my parents had accidentally wrapped the games in the wrong paper, so I ended up opening Sonic while my sister opened up Smash. Pretty damn funny. But no, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is a weirdly nostalgic game for me. I adored the cartoon growing up and still do to this day, so maybe that has something to do with it. I can also say I appreciate the art direction a lot. If the game had better circumstances, whether it be hardware or performance, I feel like a lot more people would be in the know about how this game is actually pretty nice to look at. The environments and colors do truly pop in this game, it just needed better tuning. But enough of that, Smash Wii U. It is my personal favorite Smash game and one I poured hundreds of hours into. I competed in tournaments, made lots of friends and memories, and loved the rollout of both the base game and the DLC. I have made a video on this game before though, so instead I'll reminisce on one memory I forgot to mention in that video, and that was actually one of my first times ever having tried a Wii U. Back when I lived in Texas, El Paso in specific, that's where I was born, I rep the 915, but I had a family friend who was being stationed out of the base we lived on, so we all gathered together one final night to hang out, and they had just gotten the brand new Smash Wii U. I tried the game out and fell in love. I remember specifically using Little Mac, Meta Knight, and Greninja that night and won about every game. It was one of the few times I had actually played Smash locally, believe it or not, but a really great memory nonetheless. But that was my first month or so with the Wii U, and I gotta say, definitely a good batch of games to have, and luckily that momentum would roll into 2015, though before I get there, I wanted to hop back and forth a little bit in the story to highlight some games that released in 2013 and 2014 that I got at various points in the Wii U, and that I didn't originally play on the Wii U as well. I wanted to cover 2 games that came out the year before I got my Wii U, the first of which is Pikmin 3. Now, I originally played this game on the Nintendo Switch, but I had to highlight this game here in this video. This is one of my favorite games of all time, and for good reason. It's the most seamless, smooth game I had ever played, truly. There's so little error in this game, it has to this day my favorite Pikmin gameplay, both with the captains and the new Pikmin types of Winged and Rock. The usage of 3 captains is something that could have only been possible with the help of the Wii U and its unique control. I'm confident that having the map on the Wii U gamepad was a real game changer and helped further maximize your time in each day as well as keep track of your captains and Pikmin. I truly can gush about this game forever, and I have in the past if you're interested, but the next title I don't know if I will have an opportunity to do so in the future, so I'd like to use that chance now. As for how I got the game, I honestly don't remember, but I had to highlight The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, as I think this is visually one of my favorite looking games ever. Wind Waker has always had a stunning art style, but the HD version makes all the colors pop. I know there's debate about what version looks better, but I've always been a fan of how the Wii U's added color makes everything pop more. This is in addition to the quality of life fixes the game offers you, like the Swift Sail and the shortened Triforce quest. This is one I have yet to give a full playthrough for, unfortunately, but my first time experiencing this classic was on the Wii U, and it is how I will play it when the time eventually comes. Another title I had to highlight despite having played it first on Switch is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. In short, this is everything about a 2D platformer perfected. This game offers a perfect blend of challenge, innovative level design, smooth control, all backed with incredible music. I remember when I would watch videos on the Wii U back when the console was still Nintendo's primary home console system, and I'd look to see which games I didn't own and what I wanted the most, and every single time, this was my #1 option. So I'm thrilled I was able to experience it, even if it wasn't on original hardware. Okay, let's make this one quick. If you've been a viewer of my channel for a while, you already know how I feel about this one, but if you are new to the channel, for one, welcome, thank you for watching. But 2 is that I love Bayonetta. Bayonetta is my favorite game of all time. I have multiple tattoos from this game specifically. I could really go on forever about it, and I actually have. But for this portion, I'll reiterate a point I made in that video that this game on Wii U is how I first got introduced to the franchise. I still don't really know why a 9-year-old had access to this game, but a friend I had went to elementary school with had told me on the playground about a game she got called Bayonetta 2, and that very day I went home and asked my parents to get the game. It may be dramatic, but I'm not too sure where my life would be had I never played this game. At the very least, how my gaming journey would have went. And that was all thanks to that friend on the playground and this very console, the Wii U. Playing it on Wii U actually felt pretty good as well, which was another example of correct optimization for the hardware thanks to Platinum Games. It was unlike anything I'd ever played up to that point, and without it, I may not have had a lot of core experiences in my life. I have an entire series on the original trilogy if you're curious, but I cannot justify making this video without including Bayonetta 2 on here. Going back to the pay lore for a little bit, kicking off 2015, I largely played the same games I had gotten from November, like Smash and Mario Kart 8. However, the first actual title I got for the console that wasn't a part of the holiday season came from my birthday. I had gotten a few amiibos such as Sheik and Zelda, but I also got a game that I wouldn't know it at the time, but would become one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm of course talking about the GOAT, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. This game is everything I enjoy in a video game wrapped into one. It never overstays its welcome, has good gameplay, not too challenging but also requires a little brain power for some puzzles, and has a good protagonist. There's just something so cozy about the game, it really is one that you can play anytime you need it. The visuals were really nice, especially the lava locations I thought were done really well. The game is on both Switch and 3DS, each with features of their own, but there was something about the Wii U's for a good period of time that was the definitive version. It still to this day retains exclusive levels for 3D World, and since that game was built for the Wii U, it integrates the gamepad into its design. The original release had features like blowing into the microphone for platforms, or using the stylus or your finger to touch the screen for different moving parts in the game. The pointer controls are a solid alternative on Switch, but honestly you can't beat the actual physical integrations the Wii U brought to your experience. Hopefully someday I'll get to make a video on this game, because it more than deserves it. Now for this next section, I'm going to bundle in a couple of games together. I'm going to bundle in Hyrule Warriors, Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Kirby and the Rainbow Curse together, since I did get them all within their release years, but never played any of them. For Hyrule Warriors, I had never really been interested in Warriors games. They're just not really my style, so it was more for my dad than me. But I can't deny seeing a Nintendo franchise being integrated with Warriors was a really neat concept. As for Xenoblade, I'm not gonna lie to you, I honestly have no damn clue how I got this game. There unfortunately isn't really a reason to go back and play it on Wii U, however thanks to the Switch version, playing this game is saved to this day. What the fuck? I just got me a notification someone wanted to cover a shift. I'm not fucking doing it. I will say this is a really cool game to have on a console like the Wii U. It did a great job of showing what the console could be capable of, and I hope to try this title out someday in the future. And as for Kirby, I honestly also don't know why I never tried it. I think the art style is actually really neat, but I've not yet given it a fair shot, so I owe it to myself to try someday. I also believe that this game was for my sister. I think she had gotten it for a Christmas present, so maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not really sure. But also bundling in two games that I actually have played though, I want to talk about NES Remix and Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge, though I will be honest with you, I don't remember how I got either of these titles. I'll start with Mini Mario as it was the shorter of the two titles, but I thought that this game was pretty cute. It wasn't anything mind-blowing, but being a kid who had never had a true Toys to Life game like Skylanders or Disney Infinity unless I was at a friend's house, this was my closest experience to it, so I'll take it. The satisfaction of tapping an amiibo onto your gamepad and seeing it have an effect in what you could play was so neat. And this game was the best example of it because you literally couldn't play it unless you had an amiibo. But NES Remix, this game was so fucking cool. Truth be told, I've never been the biggest retro video game fan. I know, shocking, I'm 20 years old, the Wii U is considered retro now, so I guess this is kind of my retro console anyway. The days of the NES were ones I wouldn't play often. It was more so something my dad still held onto and would pop out from time to time to show me, but when the NES Remix released, this was honestly my exposure to a lot of retro titles. The concept of taking these retro titles and modernizing them with bite-sized speedrun-like challenges was such a neat concept that hasn't been replicated by not only other companies, but even Nintendo themselves. The Wii U has a lot of hidden gems naturally, but I feel like this one is right up there among them as a must-play for anyone curious, especially if you've never been big on retro games like myself. This next title was a bit of a late birthday gift since it released 9 days after my birthday on March 20th, but I'm of course talking about Mario Party 10. Now this title I can say with confidence I played it the best way, and that was by not playing with the boards at all. For some reason when I was younger I never played the actual Mario Party mode itself in any Mario Party game. I owned all the entries from GameCube on, and I not once touched any of the boards. Instead, I opted to play the minigames exclusively. I honestly don't fucking know why I did this, but I was a kid, so that is my excuse. The minigames here, though, were pretty solid. This has always been the series at its best. My favorite thing about this game, however, was the bundle of the Mario amiibo that it came with, which I of course got. I believe the standard Mario amiibo was exclusive to this bundle for its initial release before being quickly moved off. I could be wrong on that, though. But 2015 is perhaps the most nostalgic for me because of two of my favorite titles releasing for the console within 4 months of each other. The first of these two titles is none other than Splatoon. I can say so much about Splatoon and its meaning to me, as well as the impact that it had on Nintendo. In a little over 10 years from its May 20th release, this franchise birthed and became a juggernaut in Nintendo's lineup. I've already discussed the first game on its own dedicated video if you're interested, but allow me to brief on the game once more. I originally didn't own Splatoon when it launched. Every weekend I would go to my local video game rental place where I lived in Kansas, and I'd rent the game every weekend until finally owning it a few months later. I have a lot of nostalgic warm feelings for that time, trying out a game for the first time and completely falling in love with it to the point of renting it out every week just until you were able to own it yourself. It was a good time. But the game also carries that odd sense of nostalgia as well. Everything about it felt so fresh and innovative for its time, no less for Nintendo. The atmosphere of the game just feels different, even compared to its preceding entries. This game, along with the next title, is probably the strongest users of the Wii U gamepad on the console to this point. While playing on the TV, the gamepad screen would house the map, allowing you to tap the screen to jump to your teammates, or if you were outside of battles, show you the map of Inkopolis. Despite easier methods for both of these in later entries, there is a unique charm to using a gamepad for these features I did enjoy. But again, I do have an entire video dedicated to this specific game, so if you would like to hear more of my thoughts on it, that video will be linked. But the release following Splatoon would also have an equal impact on my Wii U playtime, and I'm of course talking about Super Mario Maker. Alongside Splatoon, this game would be another game I would rent from that video game store every weekend from its September 11th release date until I was able to secure my own copy, and likewise I fell in love with this game. That nostalgic feeling comes immediately as soon as I see that bright yellow cover slip for the game, which I threw away when I was younger for literally no reason at all. But regardless, I still get a wave of happiness whenever I see it. This title was the gamepad at its best. Using the stylus to create your desired levels is something that feels like an ancient artifact nowadays, but it truly is a product of its time, is the stylus. Anyways, I personally wasn't super into creating levels, but I adored playing everyone else's online, and having that easy access to all of them in the online section was such a good touch. Every day it felt like there was something new to play, and that's because there honestly was. Whether it was levels from that section or viewer levels I'd get submitted to me in live streams, they were such a treat even if hard at times. However, my favorite addition to that game hands down is the special costumes. In the Mario 1 style, they had a mushroom power-up that would give you an 8-bit costume of various characters. You could either obtain them via scanning amiibos, which I certainly appreciated, or by completing select courses that either had the character in them or as a reward for completing the various Mario level gauntlets. These costumes were all so well done and had so much range to them. There was a costume for every Smash character pre-Mewtwo and Lucas, so characters like Olimar, Sonic, and Fox all had a costume just to name a few. The ones I really loved though were the non-gaming characters, such as the Baby Metal Girls, a Mahjong Tile, fucking Shaun the Sheep. It was a really crazy lineup. If you aren't familiar with these costumes, or just want to go down memory lane, I highly recommend you look up a list of these costumes sometime if you're bored. There are some really cool pics in there. But anyways, Mario Maker was a game I played well after launch, all the way until the sequel releasing in 2019, so I more than got my playtime with this title, as well as Splatoon mentioned earlier. For the final game of my 2015 though, I couldn't have ended it on a more cozier note than with Yoshi's Woolly World. Releasing on October 16th, I'm honestly not too sure when I got that game. It could have been for that Christmas that year, maybe it was the birthday the following, but regardless, I was able to get the game and I adored this game to bits and pieces. It's to this day my favorite Yoshi game to have come out, and there's a lot riding on that. For one, the art style is incredible. Using a similar yarn aesthetic as Kirby's Epic Yarn, it makes the game feel like one giant project, like a blanket almost. Even better is with the Wii U's power, it gave the style that HD resolution boost to really make everything pop. This is going to make no damn sense, but rock with me here. The game looks like how the Wii U disc felt, if that makes any sense at all, and I'm almost positive it doesn't. But beyond the look, the control and yarn mechanics are a real treat too. Being able to use the yarn you've collected to form pathways or tie up enemies gave a lot of variety in what you could do. Even better though was the collectibles. Mainly I'm speaking about the 5 yarn bundles you find in each level. The reward for it is a new costume for Yoshi, which in my opinion is seriously the best thing about the game. All the costumes, both in-game and amiibos, are the game's charm at its best. There's so many to collect and try out, and each of them just adds so much flavor to the game. Not to mention, this game's greatest gift perhaps is giving us those Yarn Yoshi amiibos, which are some of my favorites to this day. I've largely tried to stay away from speaking about anything negative, though this is one point I felt I couldn't leave out. I often hear people online say how 2015 was one of Nintendo's worst years, and I just can't get behind that sentiment. To get it out of the way, I do have a lot of bias for this year in my life. Everything about it was so good to me. I loved the area I lived in, the people I knew, the games and media I was consuming. It's all a very special thing to my heart. But even removing that, the game lineup Nintendo put out this year was really good. A lot of the discussion focuses on things like Amiibo Festival or Ultra Smash, which is fine, but you can't leave out the amount of quality it brought to the lineup as well. Mario Maker, Woolly World, an entirely new franchise in Splatoon that had taken Nintendo to new heights. I just can't dismiss those either. But anyways, back to the main point. Going in from the high of 2015 into 2016, it was largely the same games, just getting content updates such as Splatoon. However, I did have a few staple new releases that I had good times with. Kicking us off, on March 4th saw the release of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD, which actually got launch day. I'll admit that a large part of my interest towards this game was for the Wolf Link amiibo, which is still a fantastic figure to this day. But the game itself is one I want to give a full playthrough for someday, as what I did play of it back then I really enjoyed. The game I always thought was visually pleasing, even if I preferred Wind Waker's style a bit more. But a little shortly after was the release I spent a lot more time with, being Pokken Tournament. Pokken Tournament released on March 18th, so it was a late birthday gift for me alongside the Falco amiibo, and this game was heaven for me as a child. I was obviously extremely familiar with Pokemon, it alongside wrestling was practically my life, but I had also had an appreciation for fighting games. I loved Street Fighter V, Mortal Kombat X, MVC3, etc., but I'd also enjoyed my time with Tekken 6 back on the PS3, so combining the two made for a match made in heaven. Pokken is always going to be a game I wish blew up like other fighting games because it had a lot of fun gameplay. The story mode is what I dived into first, and I beat it through the entire way, though I still liked using my Shadow Mewtwo amiibo card the first print came with. And holy shit, the OST is an absolute fucking banger. I definitely wouldn't say I was ever good at the game. I'd always been better at Street Fighter over Tekken personally, but I still had a lot of fun with it, and it gave you a lot to do regardless of skill level with things like customization. Moving into the next release I got this year was Star Fox Zero, and likewise with Twilight Princess, this is one I owe it to myself to play in full. From what I do remember of it though, I actually really enjoyed it. The game had released on April 22nd, and what was really neat about it was the inclusion of another game, Star Fox Guard, bundled in. Guard, from what I remember, was a tower defense game, but if I'm being honest, I didn't play it much. The main attraction for me was of course Zero, which I look back on with good feelings. I remember being blown away at the reveal trailer, from the Nintendo executives as puppets to the gameplay, which I thought looked stunning. The game was definitely marketed towards me, with cool new R-Wing transformations as a main selling point, and well, it worked. It also helped that I loved Star Fox 64 already, so it was bound to at least be enjoyable for me. However, the last release of this year that I got was a big one for the then 10-year-old me. Throughout my childhood, the one series that I was always bound to have a great time with was Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. And if you recall, in 2016, the Olympics were held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, so we were bound to get a new entry. Even better was this was the Summer Olympics, which I'd always preferred over the winter. What was funny about this game in hindsight was it would become one of the most rare games that I owned, since physical prints of this game weren't as well produced. But the game itself I absolutely adore. It's my second favorite entry in the entire series, only behind London 2012. I think with any of these games, if you give them to a kid, they're bound to be entertained. They're all essentially minigame collections, but the new additions really improved this title for me in that department. My 3 must-plays every session were always boxing, football, and rugby, all of which were a ton of fun to play, as well as being the new additions. I also love the hub world they went with, really adding to the vibe that you were in the city and participating in these events with your Mii. Walking around talking to all the Mario and Sonic characters and seeing their interactions was always such a treat that made me yearn for another entry in the series, even if that probably won't ever happen again. I had forgotten until I launched the game and did research for this video, but this game featured 20 new characters in addition to the returning cast, giving you a total of 41 fucking characters, which is pretty crazy. I truly do love this game, even without any of the crazy features London 2012 had. It's a wonderful time to just sit down and blow off steam with. This was my 2016 for the Wii U in large. There are a few titles I didn't mention, such as Paper Mario Color Splash that I owned, but I left them out due to me not having played them. The following year would begin to put a close on the Wii U's life cycle, with the Nintendo Switch releasing on March 3rd. However, the Wii U would close with a poetic swan song, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. And then Just Dance. And then Just Dance again. And then Axiom Verge. Then Shakedown Hawaii. But for Nintendo's sake, their last published game was the long-awaited Zelda title we were promised years ago for the Wii U, and man, what a great game. As for how this relates to the Wii U for me, it was actually the first version of the game that I had played. So I had missed out on getting the Switch launch day, so I instead picked up the game on Wii U that very day. Then I wound up getting a Switch like 3 days later with a copy of Breath of the Wild as well, so I ended up having 2. Me and my dad had settled on me playing the Wii U version while he would supposedly play the Switch version, though he did not play that game. But playing on the Wii U was a really amazing experience. While I didn't finish the game on Wii U, I look back at those times playing it fondly. I would wake up each morning before school and sit on my blue loft chair and just enjoy the atmosphere of the game. I would often just search for shrines around the area and try to complete the map, but the game really is such a treat to get lost into, though I'm sure everybody knows this by now. It also worked really well on the Wii U, and specifically the gamepad. It made the game that much more cozier to play, having both things on the monitor and the gamepad screen. But aside from Breath of the Wild, a lot of people would soon fade out their Wii U's in favor for the Switch. Thankfully, I got a little bit more time with my console than most others, as around the time I began streaming thanks to my dad getting an Elgato capture card. So I was making good use of games like Mario Maker and Smash Wii U, interacting with lots of new viewers and people who would later become close friends of mine. In addition to this, I also got into playing Smash Bros competitively, so I spent a lot of hours practicing and entering in online tournaments, even winning one in the process. I was a Corrin main, if you were wondering. Though after the release of Super Mario Maker 2 in 2019, my gaming on the console is pretty much done. In time since then, the only new game that I had played on the Wii U I hadn't yet played was Nintendo Land, though my time with that one was limited, so I don't really have many thoughts. I'm pump faking again, sorry. Despite this though, I still have one more use for the console: YouTube on Wii U. A stroke of genius if you will, but let me paint you a picture. Close your eyes, except maybe because I might have shit on the screen. I used to have a bedside table by my bed, which I mainly used for my water and my phone as anybody else would, but it had just enough space to put the Wii U gamepad and its stand on it, so at night when I was ready to go to bed, I would turn off my monitor screen and turn up the volume on my Wii U gamepad so I had sleeping music right there without the light distraction of a monitor. Beast as fuck. When I tell you I put thousands of hours onto YouTube in my Wii U because of this one feature, I truly mean it. The gamepad really was a godsend of a controller, and perhaps that's the best way I can describe everything I love about this console. It surprised you in ways you never expect. From the moment I opened the console box and saw the Wii U gamepad, to every new game I got to experience for the first time. All of the hours I spent after school on games like Splatoon and Smash 4, all the way to the final times of using it as a YouTube player. The console is always bound to give you a creative experience, and I think that's what I love about it the most. I wouldn't trade the Nintendo we have today for anything in its past. The company is hitting on all strides, all while retaining the amazing games and creativity we all love. I often hear people say that they miss the old fun Nintendo, the one that was creative, that weren't afraid to take risks. But the truth is that they never left. Sure, things like having an inviting home menu like the Wara Wara Plaza would be nice to have back, but if we're being realistic, you're there to play games, and the quality of the games has never left. However, despite saying all of this, it's still fun to look back fondly on the past. The Wii U is my favorite console of all time. It gave me countless memories, an incredible lineup of games, a console well beyond its time, and most importantly to me, it made me incredibly happy and gave me a console I could connect directly to one of my favorite time periods of my life. Going back to the console for this video made me remember all of these things, and I'm glad I got to share it all with you. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on the console down below in the comments. If you have any memories of it, thoughts on the video, or anything in between, I would love to hear it. One thing I did want to reiterate is that there were some titles I didn't mention, such as say Paper Mario Color Splash or Game & Wario, and that's just due to me either not owning it, or if I did, I hadn't ever tried it. But hopefully someday I will. If you enjoyed the video, a like and a subscribe as well would go a long way in helping, but other than that, that is all from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.